The second Amara Okoye realized what she had done, her stomach dropped. Her phone was still in her hand. The message was still on the screen. I miss you. I need you tonight. It wasn't supposed to go there. That message was meant for the man she had been waiting on. The man who hadn't answered her calls. The man who had slowly gone quiet without explanation. But instead, it had gone to a number she hadn't spoken to in months, one she had saved for a reason she never expected to test. Do not contact, Kang Jae-hyun. 3 dots appeared almost instantly. Amara stopped breathing. Then the reply came. You sent this on purpose, or you're about to regret a very serious mistake. Her pulse thundered in her ears. What Amara didn't know was that Kang Jae-hyun wasn't just any man she shouldn't be texting. He was a crime lord whose name was spoken carefully in Seoul. A man who controlled networks that never appeared on the news. A man who didn't chase people, he summoned them. And tonight, her vulnerability had reached him first. Before we go any further, if you love dark romance, dangerous power dynamics, and stories where one moment changes everything, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because this story doesn't slow down from here. Amara Okoye wasn't reckless. She was careful, calculated, controlled. At 28, she had built a quiet, respectable life in Seoul through discipline alone. She worked hard, stayed invisible, and avoided men like Kang Jae-hyun at all costs. Especially after the night their paths had crossed months ago, when she'd spoken to him without fear and walked away knowing she never should have. That was why his number was saved the way it was. That was why she never touched it. Until tonight, the man she loved had been pulling away for weeks. Missed calls, excuses, silence that felt louder than shouting. And for the first time in a long time, Amara had cracked. Just a little. Long enough to reach out. Long enough to forget. Her phone vibrated again. I know where you are, Amara Okoye. Her breath caught. She hadn't told him her name. Across the city, Kang Jae-hyun sat in the quiet of his penthouse, staring at the screen with something he hadn't felt in years, interest. Not because of the message itself, but because of the woman who sent it. The woman who didn't beg. The woman who didn't run. The woman who had just stepped back into his world, whether she meant to or not. And this time, he wasn't planning to let her walk away. Amara Okoye had always believed loneliness was something loud. Something that announced itself with tears, with shaking hands, with nights that fell apart too easily. She was wrong. Loneliness, she was learning, could be quiet. It could sit beside you on a well-made couch in a carefully curated apartment and say nothing at all. The city outside her window was alive. Seoul never slept. It hummed, glowed, moved with purpose. But inside her apartment, time felt stalled. Her heels lay abandoned by the door, her jacket draped over a chair she hadn't sat in all evening. The food she'd ordered hours ago had gone cold on the counter, untouched. She hadn't been hungry. She hadn't been much of anything. Amara picked up her phone again, even though she already knew there would be nothing new. No missed calls. No unread messages. She exhaled slowly, the sound more tired than angry. She wasn't the kind of woman who begged for attention. She had built her life on self-control, on being the one people relied on, not the one who reached out first. But something about tonight felt heavier. The silence had stretched too long, and the space where someone should have been had begun to echo. She paced the length of her living room, bare feet brushing against polished floors, her thoughts looping in circles she refused to name. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe he was just busy. Maybe tomorrow. Her phone buzzed. Her heart jumped before her mind caught up. But it wasn't him. It was an automated reminder she dismissed without reading. The disappointment came sharp and fast, surprising her with its intensity. Amara stopped walking. She stood still, phone warm in her hand, chest rising as she tried to steady herself. This wasn't like her. She didn't unravel. She didn't spiral. She didn't let one unanswered message shake her sense of balance. But tonight, she felt unseen. She sank onto the edge of the couch and stared at her screen, thumb hovering over the keyboard. She told herself she wouldn't, that she didn't need to, that reaching out wouldn't change anything. Still, her fingers moved. She typed slowly this time, each word deliberate, stripped of pride and pretense. I miss you. She paused, then added the truth she'd been circling all evening. I need you tonight. For a moment, she just looked at the message. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't pleading. It was honest. And that scared her more than anger ever could. She glanced at the contact name, familiar enough that she didn't think twice. Her mind was already somewhere else, already bracing for rejection or silence. She hit send. The sound was soft, final. And then she saw it. The name at the top of the screen wasn't the one she'd intended to see. Her breath caught so suddenly it felt like pain. Do not contact, Kang Jae-hyun. No, she whispered, the word leaving her lips before her mind could fully process it. Her fingers tightened around the phone, as if squeezing it hard enough might reverse time. She stared at the screen, waiting for it to change, waiting for reality to correct itself. But it didn't. The message sat there, unforgiving and exposed, marked as delivered. Her heart began to race. Why had she still had his number saved? Why hadn't she deleted it the night she promised herself she would? She remembered the reason too clearly, the weight of his presence, the calm danger in his voice, the way he had looked at her as if she were something rare instead of disposable. That was exactly why she had never contacted him. Her phone vibrated. 3 dots appeared. Amara stood up so fast the couch shifted behind her. Panic crawled up her spine, cold and insistent. She typed quickly, her hands no longer steady. I'm sorry. That message wasn't meant for you. Please ignore it. She erased that. Typed again. Wrong number. Please don't respond. Too weak. Too obvious. Before she could decide, the dots disappeared. A message replaced them. You don't send words like that by accident. Her stomach dropped. She swallowed, forcing herself to breathe. Fear pressed against her ribs, but beneath it was something else. Something she didn't want to examine too closely. Awareness. The sense of being seen when she hadn't realized she was standing in the light. She didn't reply right away. Outside, a siren wailed faintly in the distance. Inside, Amara Okoye stood alone in her apartment, phone in hand, fully aware that one unguarded moment had shifted something she could not name and could not undo. Loneliness had pushed her to reach out. A mistake had answered back. And somewhere across the city, a man she had sworn never to involve herself with now knew exactly how she felt tonight. The reply came when Amara least expected it. Quietly, without urgency, without emotion. I'm listening. 2 words. That was all. They shouldn't have frightened her. They weren't threatening. They weren't aggressive. And yet her pulse spiked as if she had just stepped too close to an edge she couldn't see. She stared at the screen, waiting for something else to follow. Another message. An explanation. A demand. Nothing. The calm of it unsettled her more than anger would have. She typed, erased, typed again. I told you that message wasn't for you. This time, she hit send before she could second-guess herself. The reply came slower now, deliberate. And yet you didn't delete it. Her jaw tightened. She felt exposed in a way she couldn't articulate, like he wasn't just reading her words, but the space around them. The pauses, the hesitation, the truth she hadn't meant to offer. That doesn't mean anything, she wrote. It was a mistake. A mistake is when intention is absent. She exhaled sharply. The city noise outside seemed to fade as she focused on the screen, on the way his words carried weight without effort. Then tell me, Amara Okoye, what was your intention tonight? Her name. Her fingers stilled. She hadn't told him. She was certain of that. She hadn't signed the message. She hadn't introduced herself. A slow chill crept up her arms, settling just beneath her skin. How do you know my name? The dots appeared almost immediately this time. Because you don't forget a woman who looks at you without fear. Her breath caught. The memory surfaced uninvited, months ago, a brief encounter she had spent weeks trying to forget. A private event. A quiet confrontation. The man everyone avoided, standing still as she spoke to him like he was simply another human being. She had walked away that night believing she'd closed a door forever. She hadn't realized she'd left it unlocked. You saved my number for a reason, he continued. Not to call. To remember. Amara sat down slowly, the edge of the couch pressing into the back of her knees. Her heartbeat was steady now, but heavy. This wasn't panic. This was awareness, the kind that came when you realized you were no longer in control of the situation. I didn't reach out because of you, she typed. I reached out because I was lonely. A pause. Loneliness makes people honest. She didn't argue with that. Across the city, Kang Jae-hyun leaned back in his chair, phone resting loosely in his hand. The room around him was silent, glass and steel reflecting the city lights below. Men waited beyond the doors for instructions he hadn't given yet. They always waited. He rarely rushed. This was no different. He hadn't expected the message. He hadn't needed it. But the moment it appeared, something he had kept buried stirred, curiosity sharpened by restraint. He had spent years mastering control. Over territory, over people, over himself. And yet here she was, unguarded for a single moment, reminding him that control wasn't the same as immunity. "You shouldn't be alone tonight," he wrote. The words weren't a suggestion. Amara stared at them, her chest tightening. That familiar instinct rose, defiance mixed with caution. "That's not your concern. It is when you bring me into it. I didn't bring you into anything. You sent me the truth. Don't take it back now." Her phone buzzed again before she could respond. "I won't pretend I don't understand what you're feeling, Amara. But understand this, when you speak to me I listen. And when I listen, things change." Her throat went dry. "Is that a threat?" "No. A promise." Silence stretched between them, thick and deliberate. Amara stood and walked to the window, pressing her free hand against the cool glass. The city still moved as it always did. People lived their lives unaware that hers had tilted slightly off its axis. "What do you want?" she finally asked. Another pause, longer this time. "To know why a woman like you reached for the wrong man instead of the one who failed her." Her grip on the phone tightened. "You don't know anything about me. I know enough to recognize restraint when I see it. And exhaustion. You've been holding yourself together for someone who stopped showing up." Her chest ached, not because he was wrong, but because he was precise. "That's not your problem." "It could be." Amara closed her eyes. Somewhere deep inside, a warning sounded, quiet but persistent. This man was not chaos. He was order sharpened into something dangerous. And the most dangerous thing about him wasn't his power. It was the way he spoke as if he had all the time in the world. "Get some rest." Amara Okoye, Jae-hyun wrote at last. "Tonight isn't over. But it doesn't need to end badly." Before she could ask what that meant, the screen went still. No dots. No explanation. Just the echo of his presence lingering in the quiet of her apartment, and the unmistakable certainty that the man who had answered her message was not someone who ever did anything by accident. Amara slept poorly, not because of nightmares, but because of the quiet, the kind that pressed in too closely, filled with unfinished thoughts and words that hadn't been said. Every time she drifted toward sleep, her phone seemed heavier in her hand, even when it wasn't there. She woke just before dawn, heart racing for no reason she could explain. Her phone was on the nightstand. She reached for it before she could stop herself. No new messages. She told herself that was good, that whatever tension had wrapped itself around last night had loosened with the dark. Morning always brought clarity, distance, control. Still, she lay there longer than usual, staring at the ceiling as pale light filtered through the curtains. When she finally rose, showered, dressed, and stepped into the rhythm of her day, she moved with practiced efficiency, but something had shifted beneath the surface. It happened mid-morning. She was standing at the coffee counter near her office, scanning her schedule, when her phone vibrated. Unknown number. Her pulse jumped once before she steadied it. She answered without speaking. "You take your coffee black," a calm voice said. "No sugar." Amara froze. The cafe noise blurred into a low hum as her fingers tightened around the phone. She hadn't ordered yet. She hadn't said a word. "How do you know that?" she asked carefully. A pause. Not uncertainty. "Choice. You ordered it the night we met," he replied. "You were tired. You didn't pretend otherwise." Her throat went dry. "You've been watching me," she said. "I've been paying attention." She turned slowly, scanning the room, half expecting to see him standing somewhere nearby. There was no sign of him, no dark suit, no still presence cutting through the space. Just strangers going about their mornings. "Why?" she asked. Another pause, longer this time. "Because you didn't flinch." She closed her eyes briefly, the memory surfacing without permission. The way she had stood her ground months ago. The way everyone else had held their breath. "That doesn't give you the right to invade my life." "You're right," he said evenly. "It doesn't." And yet, her phone buzzed again before she could respond. This time a message. I know where you work. I know how long you've lived here. I know you call your mother every Sunday and pretend you're not lonely. Her breath caught. I know you stay because leaving feels like failure, and you hate failing more than you hate being alone. She stepped back, heart pounding now, awareness sharpening into something close to fear. Stop, she typed. This isn't okay. A reply came instantly. I haven't crossed the line yet. Yet. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to breathe slowly, deliberately. Panic would give him power she wasn't willing to hand over. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Because you deserve to understand the truth before you decide what to do next. Which is, whether you walk away or whether you stop pretending you're invisible. The words settled heavy in her chest. She thought of the careful life she'd built, the routines, the boundaries, the way she had learned to shrink certain parts of herself to survive. You don't get to decide who I am, she said into the phone, her voice steady despite the rush of blood in her ears. No, he agreed, but I recognize strength when I see it. She exhaled slowly. And this is your way of showing respect. Silence stretched. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, quieter. This is me being honest. If I wanted to frighten you, you wouldn't be holding this phone. If I wanted to control you, you wouldn't be arguing with me. Her jaw tightened. Then what do you want? To give you a choice, Kang Jae-hyun said. Something you haven't been given in a while. She leaned against the counter, the cool surface grounding her. Choice. The word echoed. It sounded generous. It sounded dangerous. I don't want your protection, she said. I know. I don't want favors. I know. And I don't want to be part of your world. That pause again. Measured. Thoughtful. Then don't be, he said. Not yet. Not yet. The line went dead. Amara stood there long after the call ended, phone still pressed to her ear, mind racing. He hadn't threatened her. He hadn't demanded anything. He had simply laid her life out in quiet, undeniable pieces and stepped back, which frightened her more than force ever could, because he already knew her name. He knew her patterns, her silences, her weak moments, and somehow, despite all of that, he had left the decision in her hands. For now, as she finally ordered her coffee, black, no sugar, Amara couldn't shake the realization that her life hadn't been exposed last night. It had been noticed. And once someone like Kang Jae-hyun noticed you, there was no such thing as going back to being unseen. Amara didn't confront him right away. That alone told her more than she wanted to admit. She went through the day on autopilot, smiling when required, answering emails, moving from one obligation to the next as if nothing had changed. But underneath it all, her thoughts kept circling back to the same quiet question she had been avoiding for weeks. Why hadn't he called? By evening, the city felt heavier. The lights seemed too sharp, the noise too loud. She returned to her apartment and dropped her bag by the door, standing there longer than necessary. The space felt different now, not emptier, but charged, like the air before a storm. Her phone buzzed. A message this time. No greeting. No hesitation. You're not imagining it. Her chest tightened. She didn't reply. A second message followed. He's been lying to you for months. The words hit harder than anger ever could. Amara sat down slowly, the weight of the day pressing into her shoulders. You don't know him, she typed. A pause. I know enough. She stared at the screen, torn between denial and the dull ache of recognition. She had felt the distance. Not sudden, but gradual. Missed calls explained away. Plans postponed. Affection rationed like something scarce. If you're going to say this, she wrote carefully, you'd better be sure. The reply came almost immediately. I wouldn't speak unless I was. Her phone vibrated again, this time with an image attached. She didn't open it at first. Her thumb hovered, heart pounding. Some part of her already knew what she would see. Another part begged her not to look, to preserve the fragile balance she'd been maintaining by pretending everything was fine. She opened it. The photo was clear. Too clear. It was him, her lover, sitting across from a woman she had never seen before. They were close. Close enough that their knees touched beneath the table. His hand rested on hers, fingers interlaced in a way that was unmistakably familiar. Intimate, comfortable. The timestamp was from 2 nights ago. Amara felt the air leave her lungs. Her phone buzzed again. There are more, Jaehyun wrote. Different days. Different places. Same woman. Her vision blurred, not with tears but with disbelief. She pressed the heel of her hand against her chest, grounding herself. Who is she? Amara asked, her fingers numb. Someone he tells different stories to, the reply came. Someone who believes he's choosing her. A bitter laugh escaped her before she could stop it. So I'm not special, she typed. Just convenient. Another pause. You were honest. He wasn't. That distinction mattered more than she expected. Amara leaned back against the couch, staring at the ceiling. Memories replayed themselves with cruel clarity. The nights he claimed exhaustion, the weekends he'd been busy, the way he'd stopped asking about her day. She had known. She had just chosen not to see it. Why are you telling me this? She asked finally. Because you asked me to ignore your message, Jaehyun replied. And I don't ignore women who speak the truth when it costs them something. Her throat tightened. What do you want me to do with this? A longer pause this time. Nothing. I won't decide for you. She scoffed softly at that. You already have. No, Amara. I removed the blindfold. What you do now is yours. She closed her eyes, letting the weight of it settle. Anger simmered beneath the hurt, but it didn't consume her. What rose instead was something quieter. Sharper. Resolve. I don't want him hurt, she typed. Whatever world you come from, keep it out of this. The reply came slower, as if measured. I wasn't planning violence. That surprised her. Then what? I was planning truth. You deserve at least that. She swallowed. And now you decide whether you confront him or walk away without giving him the satisfaction of your pain. Amara stared at the screen, the image still open, the proof undeniable. She thought of all the moments she had shrunk herself to keep peace. All the times she had waited instead of asking for more. All the ways she had tried to be understanding while slowly disappearing. Her phone buzzed one last time. Whatever you choose, Jaehyun wrote, don't mistake endurance for loyalty. They are not the same thing. She set the phone down. For a long time, she didn't move. Then she stood, walked into her bedroom, and began pulling his things from the drawers. Shirts folded with care. Shoes lined neatly by the wall. Small traces of a man who had taken up space without earning it. As she worked, something inside her loosened, not into grief, but into clarity. The truth she had avoided was no longer knocking. It was standing in the open, waiting for her to step forward. And this time, she didn't look away. Amara finished, just as the sky outside began to darken. The apartment looked unfamiliar without his things. Cleaner, quieter, as if the space itself had been holding its breath and had finally exhaled. She stood in the middle of the living room, hands on her hips, surveying what remained. Nothing dramatic, no shattered objects, no tears streaking her face, just absence. Her phone buzzed. She didn't pick it up immediately. When she did, the message waiting for her was calm, almost unreadable in its restraint. It's done. She closed her eyes. So you really do move fast, she typed. Efficiency isn't the same as force. She leaned against the counter, the cool surface steady beneath her palms. I didn't ask you to do anything. No, you didn't. That was the problem. Amara's jaw tightened. Listen to me carefully, Jaehyun. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want fear. I wanted the truth, and I wanted it without blood, threats, or power plays. A pause followed, longer than usual. When he replied, the words came slower, stripped of their usual certainty. No one has ever asked me to do nothing. Her fingers hovered before she responded. Then learn. Silence stretched between them, thick with something unspoken. When he spoke again, his tone had shifted, not softened, but sharpened into focus. You should understand something, Amara. Men like him disappear from women's lives every day because of men like me. And I should understand something too, she replied. I don't need someone erased to feel whole again. Another pause. You're not afraid of me. It wasn't a question. She exhaled slowly. I'm not afraid of power, she typed. I'm afraid of losing myself to it. That did it. When his reply came, it was shorter than usual. Then say the word. Her heart beat harder, but her resolve didn't waver. No harm. No intimidation. No reminders that you can end people. A longer silence followed. Amara wondered if this would be the moment he pushed back. If the man who ruled through control would reject a boundary drawn by someone he hadn't chosen to obey. Instead, the message that appeared surprised her. Very well. Her brows knit. That's it. You asked me to stop. I will. Just like that. Just like that. She frowned, suspicion curling beneath her calm. Why? Another pause. Because you didn't beg. You didn't threaten. You didn't ask me to fix what wasn't mine to fix. Her grip on the phone tightened. And because you drew a line without raising your voice. That takes more strength than violence. Amara sat down slowly, the weight of the moment settling into her bones. She hadn't expected compliance. She certainly hadn't expected respect. Good, she typed. Then we're clear. Not entirely. Her shoulders stiffened. I won't act against your wishes, Jae-hyun continued. But don't mistake restraint for distance. You don't get to pretend none of this happened. I'm not pretending, she replied. I'm choosing. Another quiet stretch passed. Outside, the city lights flickered on one by one, unaware of the negotiation unfolding in silence. Then, you've already chosen yourself tonight. She swallowed. That's all I wanted. His reply came after a moment. For now. She almost smiled at that. For now is enough. She set the phone down and walked to the window, looking out at the city she had chosen as her own. Somewhere in its vast sprawl, Kang Jae-hyun existed. Dangerous, controlled, watching. But tonight, she had not yielded. She had not asked him to destroy. She had not allowed him to dominate the narrative of her pain. She had taken what she needed, the truth, and drawn a boundary so clear it didn't require explanation. Violence hadn't solved anything. Silence had. As she turned away from the window and reached for a glass of water, her phone buzzed one last time. You should know this, Amara Okoye. She hesitated, then picked it up. I don't cross lines I'm told not to cross. But I remember where they are. Her chest tightened, not with fear, but with awareness. She typed a single reply. Good. Then she turned off the phone, placed it face down on the table, and let the quiet settle around her. For the first time in a long while, the silence didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like control. Amara didn't expect to hear from him again so soon. 2 days passed in quiet. Not the hollow kind she'd grown used to, but a steadier silence that allowed her to think without bracing herself. She returned to work, moved through meetings, answered questions, lived inside the version of herself she trusted. The memory of Jae-hyun lingered, but it no longer pressed against her ribs. Then, on the third evening, her phone vibrated. Dinner. No guards. No agenda. Just honesty. She stared at the message longer than she meant to. This isn't a command, the next message followed. I'm asking. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She had drawn her line. He had respected it. If she said no now, he would accept it. She was certain of that. But curiosity stirred beneath her caution. Not reckless, not naive. Measured. Where? She typed. Somewhere you choose. She exhaled. Send the address. 1 hour. The restaurant was small and quiet, tucked between louder streets, its windows glowing warmly against the night. When Amara arrived, she spotted him immediately, not because he demanded attention, but because the room seemed to recognize him before she did. Kang Jae-hyun stood as she approached. No dark entourage, no imposing display, just a man in a tailored coat, posture relaxed, eyes alert. You came, he said. You asked, she replied. A flicker crossed his expression, something like approval. He waited until she sat before taking his seat across from her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. It wasn't awkward. It was deliberate. You're not afraid, he said at last. I am, Amara replied evenly. I just don't let it decide for me. That earned a quiet breath of laughter, soft, brief, real. I don't do this, he admitted. Not like this. Then why now? He considered her for a moment, then answered honestly. Because you didn't come to be impressed. She nodded once. I didn't come to be protected either. I know. They ordered without ceremony. When the food arrived, Jae-hyun watched her closely, not in the way men usually did, but as if he were listening with his eyes. You could have disappeared, he said. After the truth. After the boundary. Most people would. But then I'd still be running, she replied. And I'm tired of that. His gaze sharpened, not with danger but interest. From him, he asked. From myself. Silence fell again, softer this time. I don't enjoy what I do, he said suddenly. Amara looked up, surprised. I'm good at it, he continued. There's a difference. People assume I confuse the two. She studied his face, the stillness he carried, the restraint layered beneath control. What would you be, she asked gently, if you didn't have to survive anymore? The question landed deeper than she'd intended. I don't know, he admitted after a long pause. No one has ever asked me that. She smiled faintly. Then maybe start there. The food grew cold as conversation unfolded. Not confessions, not dramatic revelations. Just truth offered without armor. He spoke of structure, of responsibility mistaken for purpose. She spoke of endurance mistaken for love. I stayed too long, she said quietly. So did I, he replied. Their eyes met, something unguarded passing between them. I won't be controlled, Amara said. Not by fear, not by affection. I wouldn't want you to be, he said without hesitation. I don't want ownership. I want consent. The words settled heavy and unexpected. Why? She asked. Because anything else would be empty. She leaned back slightly, studying him. And if I walk away, then I let you, he said simply. And I don't punish you for choosing yourself. Her chest tightened, not with fear but with relief. Dinner ended without promises. No hands reached across the table. No future was claimed. When they stood to leave, Jae-hyun paused. Thank you, he said. For what? For sitting with me without pretending I'm something I'm not. She met his gaze steadily. And thank you, she replied, for not pretending I'm weaker than I am. Outside, the night wrapped around them, cool and open. As they parted ways, Amara realized something quietly profound. She wasn't afraid of him anymore. And he wasn't hiding. For the first time since the message that changed everything, fear had stepped aside, replaced not by certainty, but by honesty. And that, she knew, was far more dangerous than either of them had expected. Jae-hyun did not follow her home. The realization came to Amara halfway down the block, surprising her with its weight. She hadn't expected him to. That was the point. Still, some part of her had been braced for the quiet shadow of his presence, for the subtle assertion of control she had come to associate with men who claimed power. Instead, the night remained hers. She slept deeply for the first time in weeks. For Jae-hyun, sleep did not come at all. He stood at the window of his penthouse long after the city lights blurred into a single, pulsing glow. His phone lay untouched on the table behind him. He could have sent a message, something precise, something disarming. He knew exactly how. He didn't. That restraint felt unfamiliar. Not difficult, but deliberate. Like holding a blade and choosing not to draw blood. He had wanted her at that table. Wanted her presence, her attention, the quiet way she refused to be impressed. But when she had stood to leave, he had wanted more. To walk her home, to ensure her safety, to keep the thread between them tight and undeniable. He had let her go. The following days tested him. He saw her name more often than he should have. On schedules and conversations, in the quiet reports his men delivered without prompting. He stopped them once. Enough, he said. I didn't ask for this. They exchanged looks, uncertain, but they obeyed. Restraint, he was learning, was not the absence of desire. It was the choice to carry it without acting. Amara felt the shift too. He didn't text every morning. He didn't appear unannounced. When he did reach out, it was measured. I'll be nearby tonight. If you need me, say so. No pressure. No implication. She stared at the message for a long moment before replying. I won't need you, but thank you for asking. The response came after a pause. I meant what I said. So did she. They met again a week later, briefly. Coffee this time. Daylight. No intimacy, cloaked in shadows. Jae-hyun arrived alone, dressed simply, his presence still commanding but less armored. You're different, Amara said, studying him over the rim of her cup. So are you. No, she replied gently. I'm the same. You're just seeing me clearly now. He considered that. I'm learning, he admitted. Most of my life, wanting something meant taking it, or destroying whatever stood between. And now I'm finding out how much discipline it takes to want without claiming. Her gaze softened, but she didn't reach for him. Does it frustrate you? Yes. She smiled faintly. Good. He laughed quietly, the sound brief but real. I would never cage you, he said, but I could have wrapped the world around you, so tightly it felt the same. And you didn't. No. Why? He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was lower. Because the moment I do that, I become exactly what you walked away from. The honesty of it settled between them. Days turned into weeks. Their connection didn't fade, it sharpened. Built on absence as much as presence. On permission rather than pursuit. Jae-hyun began declining things he once would have handled personally. Violence was delegated. Power was exercised at a distance. His men noticed. The city noticed. You're distracted, one of them said carefully. No, Jae-hyun replied. I'm focused. On her. On the space he refused to cross unless invited. The invitation didn't come. Not yet. And still he waited. One night, Amara stood on her balcony, phone in hand, the city spread beneath her. She thought of how easily he could be here. How effortlessly he could insert himself into her life. Instead, he stood somewhere else, choosing distance every time instinct told him to close it. She typed a message, then erased it. Typed again. You're doing well. It wasn't much. It was everything. His reply came minutes later. So are you? She smiled into the quiet. For the first time, wanting didn't feel like a threat. It felt like respect. And for a man who had ruled through force his entire life, Jae-hyun was beginning to understand that restraint, chosen, not imposed, was the most powerful thing he had ever learned to wield. The peace arrived so quietly that Amara almost didn't trust it. Weeks passed without disruption. No sudden appearances. No veiled warnings. No reminders of the power Jae-hyun carried so effortlessly. Their connection lived in small, intentional spaces, coffee shared in daylight, messages exchanged late at night that spoke of nothing urgent and everything meaningful. It was a rhythm that felt earned. Too earned. Amara noticed it first in the way she relaxed without realizing it. The way she no longer checked over her shoulder when she left work. The way her laughter came easier, fuller, when she was with him. She didn't tell herself she was falling in love. She simply let herself feel close. Jae-hyun noticed it in the absence of tension. For the first time in years, his days were not dictated by threat alone. He still ruled, still decided, still carried the weight of consequences others would never understand. But there were moments now, brief, dangerous moments, when he imagined a life that did not revolve around defense. That was when the danger began to sharpen its teeth. It started with whispers, names spoken too carefully, meetings requested without reason, territories that grew restless under his restraint, men who mistook his silence for weakness. You've changed, one of them said during a late-night briefing. People are noticing. Jae-hyun didn't look up. Let them. Change invites challenge. So does stagnation. The man hesitated. They're asking about her. The air shifted. Jae-hyun lifted his gaze slowly. Who is they? Everyone who thinks proximity to you is leverage. That night, he didn't text Amara. He didn't want to bring the edge of his world into hers, not when she had finally found balance. But distance had its limits, and omission was a risk all its own. Amara felt the shift before she understood it. The city seemed louder again. Her commute felt watched. Nothing overt, just the faint pressure of attention she hadn't earned and didn't want. She brushed it off at first. Stress, she told herself. Old instincts resurfacing without cause. Then she noticed the man across the street from her office 2 days in a row. He never approached, never spoke, just watched. That evening, she sent Jae-hyun a message she had avoided sending for weeks. Something feels off. His reply came instantly. Where are you? At home. Lock the door. I'm coming. Her chest tightened, not with fear, but with the weight of what his presence meant now. When the knock came, she didn't hesitate. He stood there alone, calm as ever, but something dark flickered beneath the surface. You should have told me sooner, he said gently. I didn't want to need you. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Needing isn't the same as surrender. She studied his face, searching for anger. There was none. only concern sharpened by control. Someone's been watching me, she said. I don't know who. I do. The words landed hard. Her pulse quickened. Then why am I just hearing this now? Because I was hoping it wouldn't reach you. Silence fell between them, heavier than any argument. So this is the cost, she said quietly. Of peace. Yes, he admitted. Peace attracts attention, especially when it looks undeserved. She folded her arms, grounding herself. Are you going to fix it? He met her gaze steadily. Only if you want me to. There it was again. Choice. What does fixing it mean? She asked. It means reminding certain people where lines exist. And blood. Not unless it's unavoidable. Her jaw tightened. I don't want to wake up one day and realize I'm safe because someone else paid the price for my comfort. He moved closer, stopping just short of touching her. And I don't want you to mistake danger for affection. That's how people get lost. Their eyes locked, something fragile stretching between them. I care about you, he said quietly. Not possession. Not promise. Truth. Her breath hitched. Then protect me without erasing yourself. A muscle in his jaw flexed. That's the hardest kind. Outside, the city continued its restless movement, unaware of the fragile balance holding inside her apartment. Love had grown between them, not loud, not reckless. Careful. Chosen. Real. But peace, Amara was learning, was not the absence of threat. It was the pause before it. And somewhere beyond her door, the world Jaehyun ruled was beginning to test how much restraint he truly possessed. The threat didn't announce itself. It slipped in quietly, the way danger always did when it believed it had time. Amara noticed it first in the smallest disruptions. A meeting canceled without explanation. A familiar cafe suddenly closed for renovations. A sense of being redirected without anyone ever touching her. The city hadn't turned hostile, it had become strategic. She didn't mention it at first. Not because she was afraid, but because she understood what acknowledgement might trigger. Jaehyun had been holding the line with restraint that cost him more than anyone realized. To name the danger was to invite escalation. But silence had limits. The message arrived late one evening, sent from an unregistered number. You should leave him. Some worlds are meant to be entered twice. Her fingers went cold. She didn't reply. She didn't forward it. She didn't ask questions. She waited. Jaehyun arrived within the hour. Not rushed. Not armed. Calm in the way only men who understood inevitability could be. He read the message once, then locked the phone and set it on the table between them. They've decided your leverage, he said quietly. Amara met his gaze. And you? I've decided they're wrong. That wasn't reassuring. Talk to me, she said. Not as the man who controls outcomes. As the one who promised choice. He exhaled slowly. There are factions who believe restraint is weakness. They think you softened me. That removing you restores balance. And does it? No, he said immediately. But belief doesn't require truth to be dangerous. She nodded once, absorbing it. What happens if I walk away? She asked. The question hung between them, sharp and honest. Jaehyun didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was steady, but stripped bare. They'll stop watching you. They'll shift focus. I'll handle what follows. And if I stay, then you become visible. Not as collateral, but as a decision. Amara felt the weight of that settle into her bones. She had spent years choosing invisibility because it was safe. Because it allowed her to build without interference. Loving him, choosing him was different. It wasn't reckless, but it was not neutral. I won't be hidden, she said. And I won't be used. I know, he replied. That's why this scares them. She moved closer, stopping just in front of him. What scares you? His jaw tightened. That one day I'll fail you. The honesty of it struck her harder than any threat. I don't need you to be flawless, she said softly. I need you to let me stand where you stand, eyes open. He searched her face, as if looking for hesitation. There was none. I can't promise safety, he said. I'm not asking for it. I can't promise this world won't demand things from you. I've lived in demanding worlds my entire life. A long silence followed. Then, finally, he nodded. Then here is the truth, he said. Choosing me means choosing complexity, scrutiny, risk. It also means no lies, no cages, No decisions made without you. And choosing myself, she asked. He looked at her carefully. Means you decide whether love is something you step toward or step away from when it asks more of you than comfort. Amara thought of the woman she had been when she sent that first message. Tired, unseen, hoping someone would choose her without her having to ask. She wasn't that woman anymore. She picked up the phone from the table, deleted the message, and set it back down. I'm not leaving, she said, but I'm not disappearing into you either. Something like pride flickered across his expression, not possession, not relief. Respect. Then we move forward, he said. Together. Visible. Outside, the city shifted, sensing change. Amara knew what she was choosing now. Not just a man, but a version of herself who didn't retreat when her life demanded courage. The cost was real, the danger undeniable, but so was the clarity. For the first time, love didn't feel like surrender. It felt like becoming.